friends, and welcome to the second edition of the Mid-America Trenchers video podcast. Still do not have a name for that or an official name. We've had several suggestions that I do appreciate over the past 2 weeks. We're still working on that. They have been noted. They are going through a review process. There is still time to get names in. We have not decided on anything yet, so feel free to submit. We've had quite a few show suggestions and topics and things that you guys would like to see. Everywhere from how-to videos and how to make adjustments, how to make sets, boot adjustments, clutch, hydraulic health, conveyor tension. They've been coming in fast and furious. All the way to some suggestions, which would quite frankly get me in trouble if I touch those topics. I would rather do politics and religion than some of the personal preference subjects that have been suggested that I talk about, just mostly to get in trouble. And a couple of you know who you are who suggested these. While very funny, not a chance. I'm not touching them. So I'd like to welcome everybody into my home office. You'll probably see this location about as often as any other during recording. Trying to do these during the day, as you can imagine, with phone calls and people popping in and out, can be almost impossible. But for our second show, I would like to jump right into it. We're going to talk about accumulators tonight, how to check them, and we're going to get a special guest to give us a very technical explanation of how they actually work. So without further ado, we're going to cut to the field, to me. So take it away, me. Thanks, me. We're here today in the shop, Gene Fox's shop, standing next to his machine, a 7200 platform machine that will be coming available actually this spring, and I'll put a little information in about this machine and its availability date here in just a few minutes. But for the time being, I want to point this out. This is the accumulator gauge. So I get a lot of questions about, hey, why does my accumulator say it's low but I have 400 pounds of pressure on the gauge? The accumulator pressure is measured when the machine is not running. It's actually the charge pushing back against all that charge pressure that's raising that gauge up to 400 pounds. So for accurate measurement, check this gauge when the machine is not running.
These systems can be charged and maintained with a nitrogen charging kit available for purchase and with a nitrogen bottle available at any local welding shop. Now that the machine is running, the gauge is currently showing system charge pressure. As long as the engine is running and this charge pressure is being generated, the gauge will reflect this measurement, not the amount of nitrogen in the accumulator. Gauge pressure has returned to approximately 225 pounds, reflecting the amount of nitrogen charge in the accumulator, and is no longer showing system pressure.
And now, for a technical explanation of exactly how an accumulator system works, we're going to go to our special guest, Mr. Mike Merick.
Hello, I'm Mike Merick, a certified fluid power specialist, recently retired from Craft Fluid Systems. I'd like to review the charge flow requirements of a closed-loop hydraulic system with you. The charge pump in the Danfoss 90 series pump is sized to compensate for volumetric inefficiencies of the pump and the motor, pump displacement, control flow requirements, and loop cooling. In the case of a high shock load application, such as a bucket wheel trencher, the bulk modulus of the system needs to be reviewed. In the case of the Mid-America trencher, there's approximately 3 gallons of fluid between the pump and the motor. This application can bring the motor from full speed to full stop in 3 milliseconds. Now, oil is compressible 0.5% per 1,000 psi. The hydraulic hoses are expandable, 1.5% per 1,000 PSI. During this instantaneous stop of a bucket wheel trencher, a rise of system pressure of 5,000 PSI is common. This produces a need of a quarter gallon a minute, or a quarter gallon, I should say, to compensate for the bulk modulus. Not a lot of oil, but it's needed in 3 milliseconds if you don't want the system to cavitate. That is a flow rate of 80 GPM. Even if Danfoss had charge pumps sized this large, the checks in the pump are not sized for this flow rate. The best solution is to size up an accumulator to supply this small amount of oil through adequately sized checks between the pump and the motor in this circuit. The nitrogen charge of the accumulator should be 75 to 80% of the high idle charge pressure. This accumulator can be charged by the charge pumps and the hydrostatic pumps or from an auxiliary pump. Nitrogen charge should be monitored prior to starting the engine. When the pumps are engaged, the gauge on the accumulator will read the hydraulic charge pressure, not the nitrogen charge, which is lower than the running charge pressure.
So for layman's terms, Mike, what you're saying is this although I just asked you for a very technical detail, but to break it down for those of us who might have been not able to follow, it's a giant shock absorber for the system.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's, I think, going to shed a lot of light for a lot of people out there who have seen the accumulator and not really know how it works. So I do appreciate that very much, Mike. And thanks as always for being our technical expert when we need it.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks.
Well, hopefully now you know a lot more about accumulators than you did before. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Mike Merick for joining us and providing some technical details. Keep the suggestions rolling in for both show topics and show names. We'll keep reading those and getting them added to the list. So I'd again like to thank everybody for watching. And as promised, I'm going to have more information about that platform machine, Gene Fox, as we saw earlier, that'll be available later on this year. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
This is a 2014 Buckeye 7200 with a swing out and raise platform, 400 horse Cummins, the extra heavy duty segments, the extra heavy duty drivers, the 9200 style trucks and truck rims, front and rear diff lock, 3/4 T1 buckets, the 7-foot by 36-inch wide dual motor conveyor, 150 gallon fuel tank, ball bearing style throwout clutch, 42-inch dig frame, high-powered dig circuit with 1230cc dig motors, high-powered traction circuit with 6-speed power shift, and a 40,000-pound line pull Ramsey winch. This would be an ideal dual wall machine, and with 42-inch dig frame can be equipped with radius cutting systems to do up to 30-inch dual wall.